Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming out tonight. My name is Alexa, and I'm on the events team here at Books Are Magic. We are so excited to have Amy Larocca and Anna Gasteyer to celebrate the launch of Amy's book, How to Be Well. Thunderous applause. Before we get started, I just want to point out some logistics for how tonight's event is going to go. We're going to be doing a hand-raised audience Q&A towards the end of this discussion, and this is a juicy book, so start thinking of some juicy questions. After the talk tonight, Amy will be signing and personalizing books close to where you signed in, and we will show you where that is at the end of the discussion. If you're joining us on the YouTube live stream, please feel free to explore the link in the description box below and buy a copy of How to Be Well. All right, the fun part. How to Be Well dives into the communities that swear by their activated charcoal toothpaste and green juice enemas and explains what each of these practices really is and what the science says. Larocca holds a magnifying glass to alternative medicine and nouveau lifestyle prescriptions, ultimately delivering an assessment of how the wellness industry embodies our gendered, class-based, racialized perceptions of care and self-improvement, and how it preys on our unshakable fear of the unknown. All right, without further ado, give it up for Amy and Anna.
Hi.
Hi.
How are you?
Okay.
I feel poorly suited to this task. A comedian who does take a lot of vitamins, but yeah, Amy approached me and asked me to talk about her book with her. I read it. I loved it so much. I loved it, and again, it's deeply not in a fun or funny way. Like it really made me think. I mean, there was plenty of clever observation, obviously, but I'm really excited to kind of dive into. It's interesting because even hearing the description of the book, which obviously probably have something to do with, I feel like it's the book overall is a conversation about the sort of larger marketing tools that we have all been subjected to, and bigger questions about sort of gender and anthropology and the internet and how everything is ruined. In some respects, even though, on its surface, it's, about beauty and glow and all these other fantastic, the sort of chapters of manipulation that we've all subjected ourselves to throughout our lifetimes. So I'm really looking forward to talking about it with you. Sorry about the bounce back on this. I'm an actor, so I really resonate. So I'll hold it further down. But I guess I want to ask you right out. You've been on your book tour. You just got back from California. I'll start with a weird question. What discussion has come up more than you expected it to, or what was sort of an unexpected discussion topic what do you feel people are drawn to or curious about?
Well, even though my book explicitly tells people not to ask me this, there are inevitably at the signing portion, the ladies that sidle up to me and are like, so what's the thing? Like what,
what really does
work?
Yeah.
What should I do?
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, that is it. I told you there is not a thing. And that is not how it works. You did not, I don't actually have like a secret thing for you to do. If you'd read the book all the way and they'd be like, no, I read it, but like, come on, what's the thing? And that comes up. So it's like, even no matter what, people do end up thinking there is like this magic bullet that is going to make you well. And I don't condemn people for thinking that, because as I also say in my book, I will click on any email that's like, it's in here.
Yep.
That secret is in here, no matter how many times I've clicked on it. And it's like, try lash extensions this summer. And I'm like, you said this was the email that was going to tell me, and it's not going to be a lash extension. That's not going to fix it.
Yes.
But I will click on that email the next time. So it's not that I don't understand that desire for there to be a magic bullet and the sort of hope against reality that drives us all back again and again and again. And no matter how many times we're told that it doesn't exist, we will come back looking for it.
Yeah. I mean, that's a hugely resonant theme. I mean, we should explain, I don't know how many people have read the book or haven't, but I love the way that you've just sort of tackled each of these various components, all the way from aesthetic to immortality in the larger historical context of what our perceptions of wellness are, and really how thinly veiled vanity is in that story. And I thought that was very notable. As you kind of...
Well, I think one of the things, wellness really managed to hop on to the kind of so-called feminist bandwagon and just kind of repackage a lot of beauty marketing as wellness marketing without changing pretty much anything else except the word.
Right.
And so as this kind of hashtag feminism was happening online, they were able to kind of transition and say, no, this isn't beauty, this is wellness.
Right. This is and dovetailing against, but as I said, the internet ruins everything. I mean, I think the hyper individualism and the branding movement, the idea that everything that we present online has to be some sort of marketable extension or purchasable item. Like I was so struck by, for example, in the fashion world, the sort of morphing of these earthy, crunchy fashion lines that were really about lifestyle and story about, my how I make my homemade cashew milk at the same time as selling you a $300 blouse.
Caftan,
yeah, exactly.
That you wear in your caftan. And I think and I did in the book, I look a little bit at these sort of a lot of these fashion brands that are started by women who are kind of marketing to women a lot like themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And they began as direct-to-consumer companies that were selling online. And a lot of them used so-called real women, which is a term I've hated forever because it's like, models are real women too.
Yeah.
Like they're not like fake. They are in fact women. But they use non-model, also women,
also gorgeous real women. Yeah.
And it also just all the implications of real women are so creepy. But so they would use women who are not traditionally models to sell the clothing, and then they would interview them, and they would just be like amazing. Like, I just am moving to Mexico City, and like eating my placenta and living in a church, and like saying all these things, and like wearing this caftan while I'm doing it. And
feeling the earth in my breath, in my bare feet,
and like that's what I'm doing.
My
while
uncorned, unbunioned feet.
Yeah, exactly. And like I live like in the south of France in this month, and I live in Malibu in this month, and I smoke one cigarette a day as my wellness practice. That was my favorite one, and that was the best one of all. And it was like sort of part of the marketing of the clothing was this kind of idea of the wellness life.
Yeah. It's cynical. I mean,
it gets kind of like weirdly dark
really fast. I mean, because so much of it is born. I mean, again, I don't know the marketing terms, but
because they were selling directly like online rather.
Yeah, exactly. Straight through an Instagram brand that quickly escalates to,
and it becomes like a whole lifestyle immediately. Yeah.
So that's a theme that I want to bring up. So it's when so many of these different elements, and first of all, kind of shocking number of accidental cults that we have all joined. I mean, as I sort of traipsed through the book, I was like, oh, I did the blueprint cleanse, like, and felt exactly as you described, a raging headache and a horrible cuntitis for a week, just like nothing productive about it. And I think actually probably like set off a massive weight gain immediately afterwards, in response to it. Yeah.
But the founder of the Blueprint Cleanse, when I finally did an interview, I mean, Will, who's here, was like, you got to eat a sandwich.
Yeah.
Like, this is just
the best.
Like,
I love that it always, by the way, they all end in a turkey sandwich. I don't know what it is. They're just one sandwich.
Like,
what a sandwich.
I know. And like the women who founded it were like, oh, you're going to have so much energy. You're not going to leave how much energy.
That was so
energy.
Heavily peddled. I
was like,
the idea that I just felt fresh, and I'd taken a 60-pound dump, and I just felt great. Just like nothing about it. Yeah, exactly.
And all the,
you're just
people
like
after the colonic were like, I felt like I could fly. I was just like sitting on the train home, like,
I hope I'm
going to make it.
Yeah, exactly.
And no, I didn't have any of those like great reactions. Yeah. But the Blueprint Cleanse women were like, first of all, she told me this really crazy thing, which was like, she got the idea. She was a cocktail waitress, and she got the idea because she knew how to like mix drinks and make them look attractive. And also that she was like, she had no health problems, and she was on a raw food retreat.
Yeah.
And that every other person on the raw food retreat had a terminal diagnosis. So they were there as like last resort. Like these were people who were just utterly desperate.
Yeah.
And she was just like, oh yeah, I want to do a cleanse. And then she was like, maybe there's other people like me who don't have terminal diagnoses who would like to do a cleanse. So I was just like, whoa, that blew my mind. But then also, juice fasts are so so clearly bad for you.
Yeah.
And when they were at the height of the Blueprint cleanse and all those other Organic Avenue, and they were like popping up, like obviously VC money was just going into them like crazy, and they were all over the city, sort of like, you know, before the pink berries took over all their spots. And they would get bad press all the time. Like all these doctors from fancy medical schools would explain in great detail in every newspaper, in the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, every magazine, why they were bad for you. And the founders of Blueprint said, we would say, oh God, we're gonna have a slow week. But they didn't. Their business would double. And it's sort of like the thing of clicking on the emails again and again and again. Once the word cleanse, once the word, you know, once those words were attached, you couldn't really get bad press because the desire for it to work was greater than the knowledge that it didn't.
Right. And you get into this algorithmic conversation, which is what's the negative? Why are we looking at something? Are we looking at it because it makes us feel better, dopamine, or are we looking at it because it actually just makes us feel? And so that we continue to get, you know, that's the conversations that we're having now, I think, about the internet and our kids and ways that our relationships are to it. And I was even thinking about it tonight, like, you know, whatever, dry January or dry, like all the dry hip times that we do, the dry times, you know, the dry months, and how you sign up for, you know, whatever, I signed up for some fun sounding dry, you know, cocktails, whatever. And I get, because of the way that direct marketing is set up now, where they get your email and they get your text and you get your discount code, and it's just relentless. Like there's this, you're getting attacked from every single angle. You're not every time you go on Instagram, but also every time you go on your phone. I mean, you're hearing, you know, at 5 o'clock, it's like, here comes
your cocktails.
Yeah, here comes the Face House, you know, Kin Euphorics and Senator Chris Murphy. Like all of, you know.
Well, I actually heard the worst one I've heard ever today, and this one, like, it sort of knocked me out for the rest of the afternoon. I had to like take a rest. It's in the new book by the woman who worked at Facebook about her monstrous bosses. And, you know, a lot of this book, the conclusion is, you know, that about like a lot of this is sort of dedicated to my daughters, really, because, you know, it's going to be really for them that I really realized that I was so interested in this and undertaking this project. And that, you know, the algorithm that we all talk about, the algorithm, but that one of the tricks at Facebook and Instagram was that they can see if a user has taken and then deleted in quick succession a lot of selfies. And if that happens, they follow right up with the beauty marketing. And I was like, I just wanted to die. I was like, how in the world, like, how are we ever?
I know. And
it's like, there you are. If you're a young girl and you've just deleted a bunch of selfies, in comes the beauty marketing.
Yeah.
How are we ever going to?
And the filters and the, you know, like you point out in the book, the 1-2 punch of, you know, Kardashian at the exact same time as the wellness and Doans and all these other, you know, that you're getting hit from both sides on impossible beauty standards and the demand to be natural at the same time.
Yeah.
And the manipulation in that market that's kind of endless.
That's right. It's like, you know, it's like the idea that, like, we've gotten rid of the corset is such a lie, right? We haven't. We've just got Pilates, right? Like the corset is inside our body.
It's actual
we actually do have Spanx, but more than that, like, you're supposed to be all natural, but no, you're actually supposed to have like core.
Oh yeah, you're supposed, exactly. They talk about it that way all the time. Sorry, this is so annoying. I apologize.
And I don't even know how to use one. So I'm just like,
no, it's just bouncy. Sorry. One of the when I was leading along the lines of these various trends that you go through, and so many of them, I'm curious how many people here, but again, accidentally, the pressed juice, I you know, fell into the soul cycle hell.
I'm still in it.
I know, you were very candid about it.
I love Lamar. I'm going to see him tomorrow.
It's interesting because I don't want to shit on Soul Cycle if that's the case, but again, it just that there are these phases that they're really like the juice phase. They're so punishing. There's something so relentlessly punishing about them. And I know that Soul Cycle is supposed to be, you know, soul filling, and it sounds like it is for you, which is awesome.
Mixed bag.
But I reached, again, it was like speeding so exhaustively and so sweatily and so angrily. And so, you know, that there was, I guess I kept finding such a theme. And, you know, I'm also reading that book at the same time, Girl on Girl, which is again about how women are turning on one another out of the 90s, and I think just that these incessant messages of all the endless standards to which we're supposed to hold ourselves. And Soul Cycle is it's a really well crafted cult, which you do a great job of pointing out. Even though
they're all cults.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm in so many cults.
What's your favorite cult?
I mean, Joseph Pilates and I have the same birthday.
Well, Joseph Pilates, I'm down with. He's just an educator.
I mean, when I found out. And I brought home buttons of his face for my whole family. They were like, okay. I was like, we have the same birthday. It's not my fault. They were like, okay.
That's pretty great.
It's creepy.
What I was really, I was Team Soul Cycle for like, I don't know, 3 or 4 months. In fact, one of the teachers that you mentioned, I took her classes. I have her number in my phone. It's like strange. Like one of the lead gurus, Angela Davis's name. And I remember I walked out one time and I had full under boob sweat on both in front and back, and just a pubic triangle of sweat. Like it was just like a straight. It was just so. And my husband picked me up and was like, "What's wrong with you? Why would you do this activity?"
I went once, and right when I was starting, and it was like I was staying with my parents, and I went in the Hamptons, and I went to the barn.
Oh boy!
And it was like 110 degrees and humid. And I was like sweating, and I was trying to wean, and I had like breast milk.
Oh yeah.
And it was like every fancy fashion person and like the CEO of J. Crew and the editor-in-chief of this and that. And I was just like willing them to look at my eyes. And I was just sort of like, like keeping them, trying to like keep them in my eye line. Like I've never been more disgusting in my life. But I mean, like, here I still am, like, I don't know, 15 years later.
Well, I mean, if you find your thing, you find your thing, and that's okay. Like, I think if finding the relationship that feels good. And I love the way you talk about your relationship to exercise. Actually, I think you're very candid and untraumatized in many ways, which is kind of nice. Like, but what I wanted to say that I love, and it's a consistent theme in the book that I really kept thinking about. And I'm an atheist, so to me, I'm very comfortable with that, but I really was struck by, again, the opportunistic or accidentally opportunistic business model seeking out a spiritually needy customer.
Yeah, and I think that, I mean, what's interesting is Soul Cycle did it very deliberately. And Peloton, what really interested me in Peloton is that they didn't do it deliberately. They really thought they were responding to people who would much rather go in person and couldn't.
Mm-hmm.
And that it was just like a function of a busy urban life. Like you could just have it in your house, you could just take care of business. And the first meetups that were happening between people who met on the leaderboard were organized by the users themselves, and Peloton, the company, didn't know about it. And of course, when they found out about it, they were like, this is amazing.
Yeah.
But that yearning for community was actually coming from the Peloton riders themselves.
The community.
And they didn't realize that the yearning was that strong. Yeah. And then when they had the first meetup, they found at that first meetup that there were like 6 or 8 people with Peloton tattoos, which, like, I mean, that's not like a lot of people, but that's a lot lot of people to have Peloton. When it's a Peloton tattoo. Yeah. So it was like people were identifying.
I have a Bally's Hollywood tattoo from the 90s. I'm a little embarrassed, but OG Bally's.
Yeah. That's your identity.
Connection, so I just keep it hidden.
I've always thought of you that's your identity.
Head to the midsection section. Yeah, I mean, it is. It's. But what's the bigger question to me that it sort of makes me sad that it's awesome to find community, and I think it's great that that's something that athletic people can do together. But I was struck over and over and over in the book about everything from the wellness conventions to the astrology to the online, how kind of lonely and separate we feel, and how much we want togetherness, and how selfishly we manifest it. That all the way up through, and I blame the tech bros. I think it goes all the way back to people making gazillions and gazillions of dollars, and then in turn just deciding to biohack themselves,
it's
as
weird
opposed to,
right?
I don't know, curing, poverty or something that might impact hungry people or children. It feels
what's weird
so
with the tech bros
solipsistic.
Is that they also, like, it's a lot of their, there's all these like secret companies that like that are all sort of based around this idea of living forever.
Yep.
They all want to live forever.
Which just seems only a guy would want that. No offense. I love that you said that in your book.
I
Just like
know.
every woman's like, no, I'm
Enough,
tired.
right? Like it's enough.
Yeah.
I know. And Dave Asprey, who's the bulletproof coffee guy,
Yeah.
who was the
Fantastic.
he was like, I don't know, I might want to have more kids when I'm in my 80s. And I was like,
I love that you were like, who's
okay.
gonna pick
and
them
then
up?
and then he was like, I might want to like carry them in my body. And I was like, all right. Like, and he thinks that he's going to be able to do that.
Yeah,
and,
he probably is.
And I'm like, and he's married to,
but he'll be alone on planet Earth. He won't know anyone. There will be nobody except for the people from Tuck Everlasting.
And they were so sad. They were all sad and miserable. They were like in the forest hiding, and it was awful.
All the people they knew had died.
I know, they weren't happy. But
it is interesting.
They all it's all based around this idea of like living forever, which I know weirdly it does tend to be like this very male.
Well, it's
idea.
A distinction, right? You make it, and I think repeatedly in a subtle way. But it's like, do you want to live forever, or do you want to live well now? What do you want of this life? Like, do you want a fulfilled, connected time? So it just really did strike me. And again, I'm not, like I said, I don't have a religious practice in my life, but I did go to Quaker school as a kid. Yeah. So to me, the thing that kept the meditation was probably the biggest, even though I know there are some quibbles in it, and there's some horseshit in it, but it did feel like you walked away from that experience with a sense of some kind of peace or serenity.
Well, I think the thing about meditation was like, it was interesting to me. The meditation course I took was extremely expensive, and there was this like idea that you could only do it if you got the mantra from the guy. Oh. And like you needed that mantra, and they give you the mantra on the last day, and you had to get the mantra. And I think the point was like, you don't need the mantra. You really don't need to get the mantra. And you don't need to get the mantra from that guy. And the idea that you need permission to take some quiet time is like, like everything else in wellness becomes like commodified. Well, you get the permission to take the quiet time if you've taken the expensive meditation course and you've gotten the mantra from the guy. And the course was in this really expensive gallery, like this really fancy sort of blue chip Chelsea gallery, because the people who own that gallery took his course and they believe it. Like, it like everything else in wellness becomes totally commodified. It's like
the app and the thing.
Yeah. And it's like what you like, and then you can say, well, no, I'm doing my meditation practice. And that becomes permission to take the 20 minutes to do your transcendental meditation practice.
Right.
Rather than, I think everyone probably would benefit from just like zoning out.
That's
for
the
20
Quaker.
minutes.
That's the Quaker.
Yeah.
Thing. I'm really close to so many people I went to high school with and middle school, and sometimes I think it's just because we were forced twice. First of all, we started every day, 5 minutes of silence when the bell rang, like historically, and beginning of lunch was 5 minutes of silence, and then, which is kind of amazing when you think about it now, like the chaos of like adolescence, and then. And we didn't think about anything. We were mostly just making fart noises and doing what you usually do in a Quaker meeting. But like in retrospect, that we would sit in silent fellowship is insane.
Yeah.
Like it was such once a week, you would sit for an hour together in total silence. And just the battery recharge of that was so grounding as a kid. And I think I'm a very anxious person, and I'm very impatient like many people, but maybe this is obviously my own reader bias, but as I was reading, especially in that chapter, as you discussed your process with it, the actual feeling of it, as opposed to sort of like, look, like whatever, I get the IVs when I go to LA. Everybody gets the IVs when they're in LA. Like, oh, I'm working on 14-hour day. I've got to get an IV. And I'm sure it's just like,
you just
water.
pee it out.
You just pee it out. Yeah. But it feels like, but I feel like meditation actually does, there is some science to it. There's the cortisol levels lower, and that your actual stress response in real time does, at least that's sort of what you indicated. And it seemed like that is something you could find practice for. Like, I don't know, like my kids, I notice when they practice piano, because it really is, it's so deeply mindful, and you're doing it over and over again, and you're focusing on it, whatever, 20 minutes at it, a really jacked up teenager at like 17 or 16, 20 minutes after they practice piano is a nicer teenager.
Yeah.
And in many ways, that's like, and yet they don't want to practice piano. They don't want to, they don't say like, I need a mindfulness moment. But like, it's, I thought of that while I was reading your chapter because it felt the least.
But I think practicing piano is not going to be called wellness, right?
Right.
Like
it's not.
So then it's not going to be sold as well. Like, so it's the thing of things getting packaged up and sold as wellness. And as soon as they are, it's
that's
like, we can
about.
just sell it for anything, right? Like,
yes.
And that's the sort of problem, that as soon as it's sold as wellness, it's not that there's anything wrong with, or there's lots of things right with like taking a break.
Yes.
But it's once it gets bottled up and called wellness, it's like,
Did anybody get really mad at you in the book? I mean,
did anyone get really mad at me in the book?
You're very honest about some.
Well, I'm I'm super scared of Oprah. I mean, I want to meet Oprah in a dark alley.
I thought you were very nice about Oprah. Oprah's been really open about Oprah. I think Oprah's been like patient zero for a lot of like.
I think I think the thing with Oprah is like, I think that the sort of realization I had about her is that like, there's not like, she doesn't leave like a lot of room for things to be complicated. It's like things have to be like amazing or just ignored. And it's like, so it's like she has to, it's like it's sort of revival tent mentality.
Yeah.
So like when I went on her show, it was like about, hormone replacement therapy. And I mean, never mind that there were 2 articles about it in the New York Times, and I realized like halfway through being there that she wanted Sue Dominus and not me, and her producer had totally gotten the wrong person. But I was like, whatever, she got me, I'm here. And sorry, Sue Dominus, I'm on Oprah. And that she was only able to sort of like tell the story of hormone replacement therapy as like, they said it was bad, but it's amazing.
Yeah.
And you can go off your antidepressants, you can go off your heart medicine, you're going to feel amazing. And that like the truth is actually somewhere in the middle, which is like, they said it was really bad. That's probably not true. It's probably going to help some women sometimes with some symptoms, maybe not forever. You probably, if you have anxiety or depression, probably still going to need those medications. And it might help with this symptom, but not that one. It might help you a lot and you not at all. But that's not going to make good television.
Not at all. I mean,
and so that was my kind of realization about Oprah, is that like, great television is like, this saved me. And everyone's like, it's going to save you. And it was like, that so much of her show.
Anointed. She was anointed as like, if I think about like Midwestern women in the 90s who were not even aware that they might feel shame about sexual assault or something.
And so that's amazing.
Yeah.
But that when it comes to the kind of physical, like, the medicine stuff, she can only do black or white because that makes good TV. And that I sort of started seeing her in the tradition of the kind of, medicine show, the traveling road show.
Right.
And realizing how dangerous it is because she has such a wide reach. And so, that she was the person who brought on Jenny McCarthy to talk about vaccines and autism.
Dr. Oz.
And that she sort of like, has given a voice to some kind of dangerous.
Okay, but so this is like another thing. Sorry, but and interestingly enough, like I don't know if you've seen Dead Outlaw on Broadway, but like again, there's a sort of a theme on, and Floyd Collins I think also deals with this. Like there's a president that we have right now. I think there's this kind of theme of like snake oil sales in America. Like I feel like I've become so aware of the link between this frontiering spirit, capitalism, and snake oil. And I was really, I know you mentioned, even the German, I by the way, have that Kniep, like the shampoo or whatever, like the German products and things. So I guess it's not unique to America, but it feels like it's been around forever. I mean, I think that we're always looking for the cure. Like,
well, I mean, certainly there's a lot going on in America that has a lot to do with 1930s Germany.
Yes.
And the wellness movement in America is very similar to a wellness movement in 1930s Germany. And the parallel that I noticed was at that time in Germany, you had the Industrial Revolution and you had a lot of people leaving their rural lifestyles and moving to the city.
Right.
And then you had a lot of people becoming very terrified about what that meant and what that meant for their families, what that meant for how they were going to live, and whether or not that was going to be a pure and healthy life. Much in the way in America right now, you have a technology revolution, and you have a lot of people terrified about what that means for their families and how they're going to live, and whether or not that is a pure and healthy life. You have a fear of outsiders coming in. You have a fear of whether or not those outsiders are pure and American. You have a fear of what, in Germany, you had a fear of whether or not they were truly German and whether or not they were polluting Germany. And the reactions in Germany came from the left and they came from the right. And much like they are right now, they both manifest in ideas about wellness. So the easiest and the most potent way to think about, wellness is a big QAnon recruitment tool on social media. When Alex Jones was allowed to sell things on the internet, he sold a lot of supplements, and he packaged them with like bald eagles and American flags, and like his best-selling one was called Super Male Vitality.
Sure.
And if you looked at the ingredients, they had almost the same ingredient list as Amanda Chantal Bacon's Super You that she sells through, it's called Moon Juice.
Yeah.
And they had almost the same ingredients.
I have magnesium.
You have magnesium? Yeah. I don't think
it doesn't work.
Do you mix it with a cherry juice?
It doesn't. Yeah, I do.
Yes,
and it doesn't work. I'm still up at 4, worrying that the world's ending.
Try a Valium.
The Razapam is wonderful.
Yeah, it is. So in Germany, you had the Volkisch movement, the Lebensreform movement, and some of them came to America and they became they were called like the Earth Boys and Nature Boys, and they became the sort of founders of the hippie movement, and they sold these like terrible like loaves of bread that I swear you can get in some bodegas still. The ones that are like
we
heavy.
call it German austerity bread,
and it's like
in our family. We love it, but it is a 4.5
and like when you toast
brick.
it doesn't really toast.
It doesn't toast. But it's great when it's great when you're in sort of an austere sunflower.
Yeah,
I want to have some sunflower bread and go for a walk.
And the butter doesn't that bread. That's what they brought us.
Know it.
And the ones that stayed in Germany became Nazis.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, so
there's some themes.
So there's some themes that you can see repeating.
Yeah. I mean, it's an interesting, and even last night as I was thinking about the book and getting ready, they're talking about the new potential Surgeon General. I mean, the MAHA movement.
Well, I interviewed Dr. Casey for the book. She didn't make it in, but I did re-listen to my interview with her to be like, God, she's going to be the Surgeon General. And I interviewed her because she has a startup and it's still going. I checked. She was trying to sell. So her publicist called, and this was 2 years ago or 3 years ago. It's 2005 now. It was 4 years ago. It was in 2001. She had started a company to market continuous glucose monitors as retail products. So she was trying to sell them over the counter because they're prescription products now for diabetics. But she wanted to sell them to everybody so that you could monitor your glucose levels as a diet tool.
Which is it's a very hot, it's having
you know
a
what,
moment.
It's not. They've been trying to push it for a long time and it's not taking off. But I have a sort of 90-minute interview with her, and she had taken a medical leave from Stanford Medical School. And, she's obsessed with inflammation and she's obsessed with all the things that Robert Kennedy is talking about. And they're a great match. And she's still trying to market the continuous glucose monitor. She's still at it. And, it's a very specific way of thinking about medicine.
Yeah.
I guess is one way.
Good way of putting it. Yeah.
And it's also, looking for these ways to profit off of medicine, I think, that's
the sort of depressing
crucial
part. Yeah. The it's not dissimilar to big pharma. It's just a different hustle. Basically,
it's absolutely a hustle.
Which is what is so, it's born of the fact that we have a really broken healthcare system and there's lots of people. And I think back to what you're saying about the 30s, like people feel out of control. They feel like, oh my God, there might be something in my brain.
And their way of life is threatened.
And it is. I mean, everything, all people everywhere. It's just the environment's scary, politics are scary, the world's scary. Like, so, you know, it's easy to understand why we obsess about whether or not.
And long for a sense of like some sort of sense of control.
Control.
Yeah.
Exactly. Will you talk about homeopathy a little bit? Because I like arnica. and I'm curious about it. You talked about it a little bit in the book.
I mean,
I like my Boiron products.
oh yeah, they're lovely, right?
Yeah.
I like those little beads,
Those
that
little
you
pellets,
take
yeah.
when you have the flu.
Is that horseshit? Or
Do
is
it.
Real? No, just do it.
I mean, look, I am like all in favor of like, if it's not going to hurt you, just do it.
Do it.
Yeah.
Go easy on the echinacea.
Why? Why?
Well, my neighbor got jaundice because he took too much.
Okay, so that's gonna maybe suggest to me that like your neighbor's taken a lot of echinacea.
He did. He took too much.
Yeah, I mean, there's too much. You know,
But by the
the
way, that's
woman
like
who
you say that in the
interviewed
book.
me in Montecito 2 days ago was hospitalized for drinking too much water at one point. So you know, there's too much of anything. I write about a guy in the book who died of eating black licorice.
Right.
So, you know, there's too much of anything.
Yeah. Fair.
So maybe less echinacea for your neighbor, but like
Great. Works. Do you want to? Would you
Questions?
Questions? Does anybody have any questions that they would like to ask our esteemed authoress? No.
no one has questions.
Kind of touched on it, just thinking of Robert Kennedy, and you know, I guess like my main question is, do you have any idea of like a cure for this?
A cure for Robert Kennedy?
For snake oil.
Like a lobotomy?
All its
Um,
forms.
A cure
Right.
for snake oil in all its forms? No. I mean, I guess like part of writing this book is that I don't expect us to be immune to it. And, you know, like the best face cream ever, like the best marketing ever was the face cream that was called Hope in a Jar. But to be a bit smarter as a consumer about what you're spending your money on, because that's really like, if you don't buy it, they don't sell it, is really.
They seem to be winning.
I know. The cure for it, I think, is just don't buy it. Is really, I mean, you're in control of what you use and you buy. And right now it doesn't feel that way, right? Because that's who's in charge of the health department. And that's terrifying. And it's really hard to know where to get information. I mean, he's back in office and he told us to drink bleach during COVID. So I don't know. It's very hard to know where to get your information. But that's, I guess, the closest I can come is if you don't buy it, that's the power you have.
But I think trusting those guys, I mean, talk about that in a number of different ways in the book, the sort of, we all know like the internet rabbit hole, and it's weird. It's like a comfort tick. It's almost for me, like I made pineapple water last night because I had a pineapple. Okay. So I cut it up and I was like, oh, you boiled it down and the pineapple takes down inflammation. And, you know, I was all excited. And it's like this weird bedtime thing. I was like, benefits of pineapple water, like you know, you just because it's like a happy like dopamine kick. I'm like, the internet says it's good for me, you know. It is this just kind of,
and then you're like, and I've taken care of myself.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
gonna
like
go to bed feeling like.
But the truth is, like, I'm gonna feel better.
Yeah.
I mean, that's fine, whatever. It's a pineapple. Who cares? You boil it, you drink it. I mean, no harm, no foul. But I will say, like, we all know secretly. It's like we all know when you read those things. Plug your phone in the kitchen and leave the room.
Yeah.
Like, go to bed.
For example, like
read
put your phone in the
bed.
kitchen. I went to interview Ariana Huffington, who had like a wellness company. And like, I know like you're supposed to plug your phone in the other room, right? And she's like, well, you could buy my phone bed. And I was like, your phone bed? And I swear to God, it was the IKEA bed that like my kids had for their dolls. And I don't know what it cost at IKEA, like $12. And she was like, this is the phone bed. And I was like, we have that bed. And like my kids put their dolls in it. And it had like a Thrive by Ariana Huffington blanket. She was like, it's $125.
You're supposed to put your phone night-night? Like,
yeah, like an adult puts their phone in the phone bed. Don't buy the phone bed. Just like plug your phone in the kitchen and buy an alarm clock. And like That's what you got to do.
Is having this. Yeah.
Hi.
I was curious if you felt, and forgive me, this is the book because I can't wait to read it and I just got it. If you feel that like American culture is particularly sort of ripe for this, or if it's fairly uniform around the globe with like the democratization of everything on, Instagram and everything else.
Yeah.
If there are some pockets that feel a little bit more inoculated, whether it's because of a different type of sense of self or manifest or something?
I mean, that's a great question. We obviously love to buy things in America, so that's going to make it particularly ripe here. We love self-improvement, right? We love the idea of reinvention. So those are particularly American ideas that make us super keen to take on wellness and take on these ideas. I don't know, the only other places where I spend any significant amount of time, I mean, in England over so since I've been married, I've spent a lot of time in England, and they've gotten much more into it, I would say. I feel like at first they were like, oh, no. But now they love it. So I think everyone's like just getting more American in that way.
That's the internet part.
That's the internet part. Yeah. I think like, unfortunately, they're becoming more like us than we are like them is, I think, the sad truth. But other than that, I don't know. I don't spend enough time in other places to know. And England, where I do spend a lot of time, they're just getting more like us, I'm afraid. Yeah.
In the back, yeah.
Hi. I'm a health and science journalist, so I was very struck by what you said about blueprint sales doubling.
Oh, yeah.
Articles came out. So what do you think the answer is for the media? Like, do we just not do these debunks?
No, you got to debunk. You got to debunk all the time.
Just help them if they have a platform?
Well, I mean, no, because then they're glugging their juice and being like, I'm just getting sugar and no fiber, and I don't care. I mean, no, I think it's very important to debunk. And I think it's especially important in the case of something like a Dr. Oz. I think it's especially important now when you have very crucial things like vaccines being questioned. Something like a blueprint cleanse, like who really cares, but in case of vaccine skepticism, there's like never been a more important time for health and science journalism, I would argue. So I think debunking has never been more important because the stakes for a juice cleanse are actually quite low, right? Like who really cares if people are doing a juice cleanse? But the stakes for something like vaccine skepticism are so high. So yeah, I think there's actually never been a more important time to debunk some of this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I actually don't even think the stakes are that low. I mean, as
for a cleanse,
for the blueprint. Yeah, I mean, only when I think of like, my teenage daughter. Like, that's and the speed with which that again, one influencer, does one cleanse, and next thing you know, it's all
disorder. Yeah, I mean, it's
eating
all
disorders.
A lot of the wellness stuff, that's very true, is like so much of it is just a repackaged eating disorder. And it's just an excuse to have an eating disorder and call it something else. Like the way that like so many of my colleagues, when I worked in fashion, would tell me that their eating disorders had been cured by getting biweekly colonics.
Right.
And I would be like,
wow.
Yeah, congratulations on getting over your eating disorder. I don't know what to like.
Yeah.
It's just, as soon as people like call it wellness or call it, oh, I'm on the keto diet, or I've eliminated this entire food group, or I'm, I don't have, celiac, but I'm wheat or gluten-free, or, any of these things, that level of control over food is disordered eating, and wellness facilitates that. So, yeah, I think I take back what I said about the juice cleansing. You're right. It's socially sanctioned eating disorder. And so, yeah, I think that, yes, all levels of debunking are important even if people sort of are choosing to ignore it, it's really, really, really important to have it out there.
As a parent, I find it
Yeah.
helpful all the time. I mean, when
Yeah.
I'm like, this is an actual article.
Yeah, it's not just you
that's written
screaming
by
down a
somebody.
well.
Yeah. Or, just some bunch of people on the internet saying, no, I lost 30 pounds.
Yeah, I mean, actually, even I remember, and this is like when the Master Cleanse was popular, the Vogue article about it was like, I was sick, I was in bed, I started to smell disgusting. I was like, it was Jeffrey Steingarten, the food critic for Vogue, who wrote about doing the Master Cleanse after Beyonce did it for Showgirls. And you had only like, and he only had like water and cayenne pepper. Remember that one with the lemon and everybody knows, right? And Jeffrey Steingarten did it for 12 days or something, 9 days. I don't know, something disgusting, and no food. And he was like, it was horrible. And like these smells were coming out of me and I couldn't leave my room and it was grotesque, but I lost 12 pounds. So I'll probably do it again. And, and it's like, that's not okay.
I know there was those old, I follow on Instagram, like a lot of those like old timey meme things. And I'm sure you've seen this one. It was from Cosmopolitan magazine. It was the red wine diet.
Yes.
It literally is like wine and steak all day long, like
for breakfast.
But it was like published, like it was like, this is a terrific diet to take off the extra, like whatever. It's just fantastic. And I love that, like everything that we're probably doing now, we'll look back at it and go like, what were we doing?
It's disgusting.
Yeah.
I did
Cabbage
an
soup diet.
article for Town and Country last year about this like book that was being like hailed as like revolutionary, and it was called Intuitive Eating, and it was basically like, eat when you're hungry. Stop when you're full. Eat what you're hungry for. Don't eat what you're not. And I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And like, and it was like right around the time I was doing it, and I was like, this is revolutionary. And I was like at this cafe in Tribeca waiting to meet someone, and these two women were sitting next to me, and one of them was like, well, I hadn't gotten my protein, like my whatever, the amount of protein you're supposed to get. So she's like, so I was like, bedtime, and I was like choking down these yogurts. And she's like, I felt so sick, and I was just choking down these yogurts, but I had to get the grams of protein. And I was like, don't eat the yogurt. Like, how gross. She was like, ugh. Like stuffing the protein grams in before bed. Because like some things she was on said she had to have this much protein. And it was like, don't eat the yogurt.
I know. It's back to just dialing back in. Like,
like just be normal.
Yeah. At the end of both pregnancies, this is irrelevant and selfish that I'm even bothering to take this time to say this, but at the end of both pregnancies, I wanted citrus so badly.
Yeah.
I remember I went and I bought one of those like, reamer things. Like I couldn't get enough. And midwife was like, yeah, it's vitamin C.
Yeah.
So,
Eat what
you're like about to make a person. So,
eat when you're hungry, stop when you're full. It
Yeah.
was like this, and it was like this diet is revolutionary.
Yeah. It's fascinating. Was there a question in the back? Oh yeah. I read all the way in the back and then we'll come back. Yeah. Yeah.
I haven't read the book, I can't wait. But something I've been thinking about in my consumerism around health and wellness and self-improvement, psychology, everything, is how hard it is to be a consumer now because you don't know who to trust because of what I see as the narcissism of people like Dr. Marie so-and-so, who's now selling me her her hormone therapy things and her book and her whatever.
Oh, totally.
And now they're writing books and Peter
Brandification.
and Andrew Huberman. And
Oh, completely.
He's got a podcast and a company, and you're like, oh, well, they went to Stanford.
Oh, I know. And they all went to Harvard Medical School. Yeah, no.
Like Pilates instructor, no offense to Melissa with health, but it's also now, monetizing.
I know. And when you like to just get that information from your doctor.
These
Yeah.
doctors who, I don't know, maybe I'm old fashioned, but I kind of am like, stay in your lane.
I mean, when I went to have like a workup at one of the functional medicine practices when I was doing this book, and I was like, I went like right over here and they took like 14 vials of blood. And then I went for my meeting, and they're all doctors and they've all gone to Ivy League medical schools, and they're like, what do you have for breakfast? And I'm like, kefir. And I'm feeling like super like they're gonna be so like into me, and I'm like, it's from the Hudson Valley. And this woman who's a fancy doctor, and she's like, dairy. And she tried to get me to stop having kefir and have her personal, like, self-branded protein powder. And I was like, that's not food. It's like powder, gross. Like I thought I was going to get points for eating like a whole food. And she was like, you should really be having my line of protein powder. And, that was exactly what you're describing, where I'm like, I don't want your line of protein powder. I want like food. I don't like to eat food replacement. I like to eat food. And you just immediately start feeling like, why, like if the message here is we should be having like normal food, but you all have something to sell me, why should I trust your motive? Because you've attached the word wellness to yourself. And that's sometimes what it feels like. Like just because you've attached the word wellness to yourself, you're still selling me like crap that's unregulated and untested. But you've slapped that word on it. So I'm supposed to love it, and I'm supposed to believe it. I'm supposed to believe you. And frankly, I don't. So that's part of it, is that like, I just don't buy that crap, basically. And then the other part of it is like, in the absence of so the menopause thing, for example, is there's like all this talk about how, doctors are just not trained in menopause. And so a lot of people will go to their doctor and say like, I'm having these menopause symptoms. And the doctor's like, I don't know. I just don't know about that. And they say like, oh, there was like 90 minutes in med school on menopause. And it's this crazy thing. So like the next thing you know, like Halle Berry is your like,
right.
You're like menopause expert. And like, I don't know. I love Halle Berry. She's so pretty. And, but like, I don't want is that who you want to get your menopause information from? Like, no. So, I mean, it's complicated. You'd rather just like go to your doctor or be able to call your doctor. But the problem is the way that the medical system is set up, like many people
don't have that person,
don't have that access. So you get these like, they're like springing up like mushrooms, right? Like Halle Berry or whoever on the internet. I mean, I sort of have come to the conclusion that like general rule of thumb is like, I don't want to buy anything from like my doctor. Like, I don't like, you get these emails that like your doctor is having a sale. You're like, I don't want my doctor to be having a sale. Like, gross, So like, I don't, I just, in general, like, I don't want a doctor who's going to have a sale. And, I don't like want necessarily to like ingest things from like people who I like to watch in movies.
I do have a shake that I before we go.
Except Anna.
Gives me so much vitality.
It's her only Anna's pineapple bedtime water.
Pineapple bedtime water, and I just feel more alive, focused.
Somebody had a question closer. Yeah.
Oh, that's
yes, that's you. Sorry.
I was like, I haven't read the book yet, but I'm really excited. This is kind of like a question that's like two sides of the same coin. But if there was only one takeaway that your readers can like basically carry with them, what would it be? And kind of the second layer of that is, in an ideal world where everyone reads this book, right?
Yeah.
What kind of change would you like to see, like impact would this book have on an individual, but also like a societal level?
Oh, wow. So just a small question. Well, I mean, I guess really it would be that, we're not so like easily had, right? Like that we're just a bit gentler and more accepting of ourselves, and not such suckers, and a little easier on ourselves, really, that we're not spending all of our time trying to like become better versions of ourselves, that we're like, this is fine. This is all right. This will do. That would kind of be enough. And I mean, that's really, so it's kind of like the same question, like, that this will do, I guess would be it. Yeah.
I think you answer it actually in the book and in your final chapter, which is your incentive to read the whole thing. But
this is not a spoiler. You got to finish it.
You do have to. Yeah, I mean, you do, but you speak to that. You speak to this. I really love the way you sum up having I mean, first of all, I don't know, how long did it take to do all of this research?
100 years. I mean, really, like
Yeah.
forever. I've been working on this for a really long
Yeah,
time.
I can only
Yeah.
imagine. I was thinking about
this
it.
is
as
not,
I was,
this is not smooth.
no, I mean, but it covers an incredible amount of territory with an incredibly well-researched history.
And I mean, the thing is, I had to, you know, like at a certain point I had to stop. Like I could have gone on forever on this topic.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think it's going to stop. I think that's the point. I think we're going to keep getting snake oil. I think next week.
Yeah. And like when I heard that thing today about like the thing with the Meta being able to like send in the beauty advertising as soon as the girls delete the selfies, I was like, oh my God, I need to rewrite my whole book. Like I was like, this isn't enough. You know, it just goes on and on and on.
I just think it's going to keep reinventing itself. Yeah. I mean, and as it has. I mean, the Bragg's apple cider vinegar is how many hundreds of years old as an idea?
Oh yeah, that's psycho.
Yeah. She starts with that one, by the way. So that's early in the book. So you can read that one. Sounds smart. And then you can read the conclusion.
And it's about Johnny Appleseed too.
And it's about Johnny Appleseed, the American experience. But I mean, that's, you know, it's there. These are deep, you know, these are deep revelations. And, you know, as other people have noted, once something's published once on the internet and you click on it, again, the algorithm feeds it.
And then
you
it's
just keep getting
becomes
the same
true.
thing, and then it suddenly becomes true. And it's no one, this is such a duh thing to say, but I read it last year and it stuck with me so much. Like no one's saying, they're clicking like, why are vaccines bad? Nobody's clicking kind of the counter argument. No one's clicking, why is questioning vaccines insane? You know, like you're always you're always being
it's so true,
supported with the most anxious information, if that makes any sense. Yeah. But are there any more? Are we? Oh yeah.
Is there anything in the book, or maybe something that didn't make it in the book, but could you share maybe what was the most egregious methodology that you?
Oh my God,
researched?
the colonic. Yeah, don't do it. Definitely don't do it. Yeah, I mean the colonic is just horrible. The other thing is that like there's all these things that are really like counterindicated. Like you're being told all the time to like populate your gut with these nice bacteria, and then there's just like a guy with a hose who's just gonna like wash them all out, and that is just so insane, right? Like you're like, oh, I'm gonna like nurture my flora, and then it's just like, like it's like they just wash them all out. So I don't know.
A lot of fundamental distrust that the system actually works.
Oh yeah, and
I
really felt like it took me a very long time to recover from that. I don't know how those people are doing them as frequently as they do. I don't know how they function and walk around. It's horrible.
There was one more. Oh, here, yeah.
Oh, and Valerie.
Oh, I was going to say, I was wondering what's next for you, and if you feel exhausted by this whole wellness space and you want to pivot into.
Yeah, I mean, there's a new idea and it's totally different, but I'm not going to tell you what it is. But I don't think. I mean, the thing is, it's like, you know, wellness is so. When I was starting this, and I was shopping the book around, and all these people were like, well, are you pro wellness or against it? And I was like, well, that's not like how it works for anyone. So I can't. I mean, it's not like it's going to leave my life. I mean, I don't think it's here in all of our lives, right? So I think it'll still be around in my life, but the next project is going to be very different.
Was there one event that made you like say like, this is it, I'm writing the book?
I think like maybe Amanda Chantal Bacon's The Diary of What She Consumes in a Day in Elle magazine.
Oof.
It's deep.
Do you want to share some of that?
I mean, it's like pearl dust and like I was like, what?
And that was when you're like, I've got to write this
I was
book?
like, this is overtaken fashion. This is like, there's no more fashion if this woman is eating pearl dust. I was like, well, because it was like fashion was becoming, you know, to borrow the best word, and you know, this is a word really I get from England. Fashion was becoming so common, and wellness was getting so weird. And you know, if what I was writing about a lot in fashion was like the things that both kind of like lifted people out of the banality of their everyday existence and what people really wanted and aspiration and longing, And then you just read Amanda Chantal Bacon's like diary of what she consumes in a day. And she's like so gorgeous and her life is sort of like this dream fantasy. I was like, oh, it's here now. Like that's all the longing and all the aspiration and all of the like want. And like you can live stream the Prada show. You don't have to go to Milan and be part of like this exclusive world anymore. Fashion's common. And wellness, like that's where it is.
Do you feel that it's only continuing, or do you feel like there's something next?
Well, it got so much deeper and weirder than that. Like I don't think I could have anticipated. I definitely couldn't have anticipated COVID, which like blew that whole sort of version of it up, and why the book got so much more complicated than I had anticipated, and so much deeper, and why it took me so long to write it. It went so much further than that initial idea, which is like, this is the silliest thing in the world, which was the initial idea. And then it was like, oh, this is like completely deeper and darker and so much bigger than I'd understood at first. I mean, where it's going now is just much scarier, I think, because it's like, because the world is so much scarier than it was. I originally imagined it as like quite a sort of silly thing. And it's so much bigger and darker now. So yeah, I think where it's going is much more dangerous.
Yeah, I mean, I just kept thinking over and over and over again that the antidote is this, actually. It's getting together in rooms with people. It's being together. It's like cooking together, walking together. I was thinking like vis-a-vis, not to shit on SoulCycle anymore, but like vis-a-vis that, like think about like whatever, how many people think of that, like that's Sunday ritual of my fitness class. What if you, it's crazy because I'm an atheist, but I'm like, but what if you also, I don't know, like all worked at a community garden once a month, or you all worked at a soup kitchen together. Like think about how great that would feel, to have those rituals that are actually connective.
That you did with your friends and like something you did together. I totally agree.
Coffee clutch.
Yes.
All that. So maybe that's the new wellness. Maybe we can get that moving. The new
hanging out with your friends.
Hanging out with your friends is the new wellness. I think that's it. Thank you guys so much for coming out.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Amy, for writing a really smart book.
Keep it going for Amy and Anna. You guys, this is such a great event. Thank you so much. If you're still with us on the YouTube live stream, don't buy the snake oil, buy the book. Amy will be signing close to where you guys checked in. My coworker Yeshem is pointing. It's this little alcove. It's very exciting. And I'm going to walk her back there now. Okay. And we start to turn this back into a bookstore as soon as y'all stand up. So make sure you have all your stuff with you. Thank you so much.
You're the best. That was really fun.
So fun.
You're the greatest.